Hello, and welcome back to Parley, the show where you folks support the other stuff I make by paying me monthly to talk about the topic of your choice. And this month, True Mr.FOoT has requested some discussion about a Business Zeus was a previous True Mr.FOoT parlay where they gave me a parlay from their notes that didn't really have any context, and they themselves don't remember why they asked it. And they asked me to just try to construct meaning out of it. Mr. Foot says, I want to give Business Zeus another shot. I'll give you an unedited parlay idea from my notes, and you can have some fun figuring out what to do with it. Sound good? Great. Your parlay is, not this, why so horny? Has evolution fucked humanity? And we're meant to just kind of go on that for a while. There's a spoilered out bit, but yeah, I don't know what that will be like. There's no like title in front of it, so I don't know what kind of information is in there. You said to just go off of the prompt, so I guess we'll do the spoilered out bit after a little bit when I run out on this topic. Okay, why so horny has evolution fucked humanity? Are people really horny now? I guess. Yeah, I kind of have a lot of thoughts. Okay, so the first one would be that this suggests that horniness is like a particularly large problem for modern humans. I think, to me, in any obvious way, no. Maybe in some very indirect way that is hard to understand. One way I want to talk about this is the brain on pornography. I'm not your doctor or psychologist, so take this with a grain of salt, okay? I think a lot about how I desire certain things, and some of those desires aren't seemingly coming from the fact that I am a conscious thing. Some of them seem to be from my body. So I'll give you a few quick examples. One of them would be like sexual desire. I'm not sure that makes sense if I didn't have my body. It's a desire that has to do with my body. It's not unrelated to my other desires. I think I'd still want to be close to other people. I'd still value other people if I wasn't a body. If I got mind uploaded, some of my desires would remain while others wouldn't, as far as I can tell. But I don't think the sexuality one would. It just doesn't feel to me like it would. Getting to do an intimate thing with someone maybe would, but this is kind of a... I've always felt like that was very connected, but not exactly the same as the desire to be intimate. Having it be meaningful in some way, or there being some meaning you construct yourself, is an important aspect of it, but it feeling good is also, like, it's hard to know what exactly to say, but like relevant. You see what I mean? It doesn't feel good if it doesn't feel good. It feels good if it feels good, of course. And so it's an amount that I can't know for sure of my appreciation of being intimate with people, that it feels physically good, right? Like it's a significant amount, I think, but exactly how much I really don't know. Would that make or break me wanting to do that? I guess I don't know, but it would clearly affect it. At least that's what I think. So I've thought a lot of times about, this is a desire I have that doesn't really come from me, if you want to say it that way. It comes from my current fleshy form, I suppose. At least I think it does. I don't know. And so that's made me think in the past about the widely availableness of porn, and some studies, a class I took in college about pornography. Some studies suggest that your brain on the porn, if you look at porn a lot, you need to not look at it for an amount of time that let's just save some time and say that people don't not look at it for the effects to go away fully, basically. You get some effect when you stop for a short amount of time, but it takes a couple of months, like 2 to 3 months is my memory of. This is not a very scientific parlay. Please just take this with a grain of salt. Is my memory of like the amount of time you need to not porn to not have the porn things. Now that effect is based on the idea that porn is different from just doing sexual stuff. And the idea was, the way it was worded in this study anyway, has always really bothered me. The suggestion was that it's kind of a hyper real experience. It's a very saturated experience where, the sexy part to you, or the good part to you or whatever is constantly there without the framing. And so kind of like if you had any positive experience with no buildup, there's a difference between when life is going at its normal cadence and things pay off and your endorphin center is working at this steady cadence, rather than when the thing you want is kind of always there. Sort of like if you could just manually trigger your body feeling good about something and you just did it over and over again. I think we all intuitively feel like that would have some negative consequences. And the idea is that porn does that, and it does have negative consequences. That was my non-scientific understanding. Now, that's always bothered me a little bit. The reason is that I feel like in my relationships, not to brag at all, I have gotten that. Like, I worked really hard to find partners that want the things I want. And so when I'm together with them, I don't really feel like porn isn't better than that. I don't know. Like, I think for most people, certainly most people I've spoken to, and I think those people tried hard to fulfill their relationship desires, it's that people don't get what they want in a relationship exactly. They don't say what they want. They have kinks that they don't share, or again, there's like lots of things unfulfilled. Their relationship is defined by them not getting what they want and getting a little bit of what they want as a compromise with their partner, basically because it is very, I guess, embarrassing to try to get everything you want. There needs to be a lot of trust between you and your partner. Most people just don't have that. There's no shame. It takes a lot of work to have a good relationship, but most people just don't have it. And so their relationships are defined by them not getting everything they want. But mine are, I guess I would say, not to brag about how amazing my relationships have been, but not all of them, mind you. But certainly I've been in relationships where I wouldn't say that that was what was going on for me or the other person. We would have identified as people that were getting everything we wanted, and we broke up because like outside life circumstance dictated that, not because we weren't having a fantastic time or we weren't a good fit. Again, that's not perfect. I'm just one example. I'm just saying it's always bothered me. Like, I don't think that's bad. I don't know. Like, that's weird. To me, it's always been like, okay, so yeah, for most people, maybe if you did a study, nearly everybody would have the experience that it would meaningfully change if they stopped watching porn, because their porn experience is different enough from their normal sexual experience. But if mine isn't, should I be worried about that? Is that unhealthy? I'm not like doing it all the time because I don't want to. So maybe it's fine. I don't know. It's just been something I've always thought about. And so that's what I immediately thought of when I read this. Why So Horny has evolution fucked humanity? Is it because people have this access to hyper reality that kind of spoils it for them? And you could also place our society as being in a kind of unique position to that. So something I also love thinking about are great filters. These are the ideas of concepts that cause civilizations to fail for like fundamental reasons. So it might be something like when civilizations industrialize and try to go to space, they end up ejecting enough junk into their atmosphere that they create a layer of space junk that traps them on their planet long enough that they overpopulate and die or blow each other up or something. Whereas if they didn't do that, if it wasn't for that space junk step, if they could avoid that, they would get off their planet and those problems would diffuse somewhat. That's just a simple example of the way I would define a great filter. But there are other ones, and this could be one of them. To have a species succeed and become a sort of dominant in some way species on a planet, they have to have some meaningful sexual drive, and when their sexual drive isn't required for the species to continue, it will go haywire in their excess and bring them to ruin. Now, I don't think that's really true. I'm not sure I feel like that's true, but maybe it is. I don't know. Does that make sense? So those are some things that immediately come to mind. Yeah, let's play devil's advocate for the question of this parlay, which is like, is it a problem? Maybe it is a problem. I'm saying it isn't, but maybe it is. How, I guess. Yeah, maybe people are jacking it during some unnoticed, lost time that they would get some huge amount of other productive stuff done during. I personally don't think so. I feel like people probably aren't using time where they would have gotten something really effective done to masturbate or whatever. I feel like that's not happening. I feel like in the first place, most people don't have jobs where they get paid for doing more beyond completing the stuff during the day, and they often have time to do that. And so they, let's say watch porn and masturbate during work. There isn't really they wouldn't have done something else productive during that time, I would argue. I don't know that for sure, but it seems true. And a lot of people don't have a large scale life project that isn't their work. So, for better or for worse, I don't think that's good. But most people think that's fine, and it is true that they don't. And so they wouldn't have done something in their free moments either when they're not being paid to work that would like affect the direction of humanity overall in any obvious way. Now, but maybe they would have like communicated with their friends more or something, and then that would have some sort of domino effect where humans would get overall less depressed. And there is some suggestion that, having too much porn in your life makes you depressed. And so that increasing prevalence of depression as a physiological experience, when depression is a pretty valid, like logical experience, because our world is in a tricky place right now, maybe that's way more of a problem than it's easy to map that it is. You see what I mean? I don't know. I mean, we can't really know, I guess. Like I have a lot to say, but I knew exactly what it was the moment I read this parlay, so I'm kind of done. I guess I'm going to read your spoilered part. I'm sure I have more to say about this topic, but yeah, I had a lot to say, but I knew exactly what it was. Let me read your spoiler. You said, I had a literature teacher toward the end of my school life who'd figured out it's getting real dark outside. Like just as I was talking about, like maybe masturbating is destroying human psychology. Like it gets real dark. Anyway, Mr. Foot says, I had a literature teacher toward the end of my school life who'd figured out how to organize class without any effort. He would force us to read a chapter of current important book out loud and proceed to say, all right, begin. The implication being that we were supposed to start interpreting whatever we had just read in some context we had to figure out for ourselves. I, Mr. Foot, am slow when it comes to deriving any sort of meaning from anything, which is why I've spent my life in literature class listening to random thoughts of students who were good at saying a lot of stuff while sounding smart. Is there some sarcasm there? I was never good at that last bit. Why would I tell this story in the context of this parlay? No reason really. I'm just afraid of turning into that obnoxious teacher. I want to stop here for a sec. I don't think you are, by the way. First of all, the service you signed up for is I create the content of the entertainment out of your prompt. A lot of people have happened to use this service, providing a lot of content, but that's not the service I'm selling. It just happens to have become the meta for how that service is used. I guess people who want to hear someone just think about something for a half hour are people who think about something for a half hour. And so you have a lot of thoughts in general about the parlay. I'm talking to everyone who asks for parlay prompt. And so people tend to add a lot to their prompts, I guess because the people who want this service do think about these things a lot, usually. But I'd like to remind you that the service I'm selling is me coming up with the content. The guarantee of value of this service is that I've supposedly proven that I can provide interesting, reasoned discussion and a down-to-earth human viewpoint or whatever on any subject, maybe a unique but also reasonable and pleasantly logicked perspective on a subject. I don't know, but something like that. And I guess I've established that well enough in the other stuff I've made that people say, oh yeah, like I know I would enjoy that, or I think I would enjoy that. I'll pay $9. You can watch ones I've already made and see if you like them. That's the business model, right? And so you're supposed to not give me too much. People often give me too much. I'm not saying that's bad, but I like it because it's a good mental exercise, but I'm less good at going off of someone's big thing of text than doing something that is just like a writing prompt like this one. These are the easier type of parlay for me in some way. So definitely don't feel bad about that. Certainly. Now, I also think that, your teacher has a kind of problem. Not only is this what I am selling, I would also argue that as a teacher, your job is not to get the students to figure out a context for themselves. Your job is to, like, I guess, teach people to learn, right? Like to help people through the process of figuring out their own ideas. If they already have their own ideas, then maybe putting some structure or restraint on that is good. And if they don't have their own ideas, helping cultivate that is, I would argue, the job of a teacher. And this teacher did not do that. They didn't rein in the people who had their own thing they just wanted to say. Mr. Foot, forgive me for reading a little bit of sarcasm into your thing you said, but I hated that kind of student when I was in college. I found it frustrating where some people would kind of derail the conversation with just what they wanted to say. It's my job to do that to some extent now, but only when I decide for it to be. It's very important for me as a person who always has something to say to know when to not say anything. And that's hard because I get paid to always say something. But in my personal relationships, I've spent a lot of time and energy cultivating the ability to just shut up so that my partner can express whatever would come out if I gave more room to them. Maybe they would say something anyway, but I will get different things if I provide more space, and that has been a valuable thing that I've learned in my young life. And it's the same thing here. Like, I feel like your teacher, I don't mean to say something bad if you like this teacher, but I feel like they were a total failure. They didn't rein in the people who will go on to have that quality come back to bite them. And they also didn't help you, who you say you've had trouble doing this yourself, which is the job of an educator, I would argue. Well, one of them. That sucks. I don't know. I hate to be negative if you really like this teacher, but I think that's bad. Anyway, I don't think it's bad when you do something like that, because this is the point of this. I don't know. It's also much more limited, right? It's not like you're doing this every time you go to a class. You do this with me once a month. And it's for a very structured purpose. I like to think that my Parley are pretty on task to be useful for something. I don't know. Anyway, the very end, you said, if I were to guess, this Parley, Why So Horny as Evolution Fucked Humanity, was based on the thought that our evolution never prepared us for the modern world of pornography, and it hurts us in ways we don't even notice. Like, I guess so, but what do I know? Yeah, that's mostly the conclusion I had too. An anticlimax for the end of the Parley. Yeah, I guess, maybe. I'm leaning on the side of, I don't know. My own experience, if you don't mind some oversharing for a Parley you asked about being horny, what did you expect, I certainly feel like I'm less interested in sexy stuff that isn't with my partner physically. I'm less interested in that when I have more to do, not necessarily more I need to do, just more things I want to do, more things I'm excited to do. I believe that the fascination with porn is relatively cheap. In other words, with relatively little superior entertainment, people just would be interested in that instead. They're just not. Most people, for example, don't have enough time to pursue a meaty hobby, a hobby that has some mental weight behind it. Most people have pretty thin hobbies, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's because their work life makes them feel tired enough that at least they feel like they wouldn't enjoy something more involved. They probably would, in my totally unsolicited opinion, but anyway, whatever, they think they wouldn't, and I'm sure lots of them wouldn't. Some people are just very, very tired after work. I'm fortunate to have a type of work that I was able to make stimulating for myself, and so I don't feel that way. But lots of people, they're just too tired to have a really involved hobby. And if our society remains a place where you need to work that amount, and you can't really have enough energy to have a hobby, I don't believe that you can be happy. If society is like that, it's not possible to be happy living that way. I don't think. That's not a popular opinion, but I think if you don't have a substantial hobby, you cannot be happy. That is incompatible with human happiness. But most people live a life where they either strongly believe they can't, or they literally can't have a hobby like that. And I believe that it is not possible for those people to be happy that way, which is saddening to me, because to me, it's like knowing the answer but nobody can actually use it. You know, like I know what's wrong, but no one can use the advice or whatever. I mean, what do I know, really? I'm just one guy, sure. And it's not going to be the same magnitude or type of hobby as maybe what I would enjoy or whatever. Like you have to have a very broad definition of hobby. Video games. Anyway, but it might not be video games for everyone. It's just going to be video games for most people. Well, maybe not, but it probably would be. And anyway, you can hear my bias. Fine. But I do believe that this fundamental thing is important. And people just kind of can't, or again, strongly enough believe that they can't have it. And I don't think, I think that being really interested in porn is a result of that situation. And the problem would kind of go away on its own if something that prevents much happiness categorically was removed. In other words, fixing the porn problem wouldn't fix that other problem, but fixing that other problem would fix the porn problem, I think. And so it would be more efficient to fix the porn problem. Now, just as a bit of perspective before I go, this is kind of unrelated, but it came to mind. And what else are these parlay for, right? That's not necessarily the same as some other issues like, oh, here's an example. So to me, people accepting people who are, you know, gay or bi or whatever as being, you know, obviously the same and perfectly valid as everybody else, they just have this different preference. To me, like that's the same logic. It's exactly the same as accepting people of different races or cultural backgrounds or what have you, really socioeconomic backgrounds, any bias, basically religions. The mindset is the same. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't require the same process. There's unique complications specifically for each one. But if you're going to accept people of blah, 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 like it would be really weird to meet someone who accepted, you know, one type of person, but then not other types of people that are different from them. It's like, why? The same core mindset makes it obvious that you should accept both. It's hard in unique ways to accept both, but the motivation to try to accept both is the same. You see what I mean? At least I think that's how it feels to me. But our society has decided, for one reason or another, that they're not the same, that they are different, that we should give them these distinct labels and put them in these distinct boxes, and there should be a group of people that's like just gay people, not bi people, not straight people, just gay people, and we should have a box that's just people of this culture, economic, whatever, and not other people of whatever, whatever. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what's happening. That's how it happened, you know. And for that particular situation, maybe it is better to do it that way. Maybe because the unique difficulties are more of the defining trait than the fact that the motivation to accept everybody is the same. Maybe it's better to do it one at a time like that, rather than with this pornography issue where I think solving the symptoms or taking the individual problems that result from overwork isn't better than tackling the overwork directly, I guess. Which I feel like is kind of happening, maybe, hopefully. I don't know. It's just something that comes to mind. I'm not trying to say it's always better to tackle the root of the problem. Sometimes it's necessary, or I'm not sure I agree, but our society has certainly decided that it's necessary to tackle them one at a time. And I am very willing to and spend a lot of time thinking about accepting different kinds of people for myself. I have a job, the main purpose of which is to find people different from myself. Not the most extreme job of that kind, but certainly a job where I try to do that. So maybe I'm not the person who should decide how we should tackle this problem, because I'm not the one who needs maybe as much help as some people who don't accept other people that are different from them. By the way, I keep saying accept. I do personally think, no one is asking about my opinions about these subjects, but I personally think it's very important to focus on understanding, not just abiding or accepting. I had this group of people. I'm telling a college story. You told a story. I'm telling a story for the end. When I was in college, my college had a really noteworthy dining hall. It had this really distinct dining hall. It's a circle. You go around and it's kind of like Foods of the World. So there's different stands for each thing. So there's a whole pizza bar and there's a whole pasta bar. Well, you put your pasta things in and they'll toss it with your sauce of choice. And there's a whole salad bar and a whole you can cook yourself station and a whole okay, they literally just said Asian bar, but realistically it was usually Japanese food. which isn't all of Asian cuisine, just by the way. I think most of you know that, but anyhow, uh, a bit of a thing. But anyway, there was a lot of variety, okay? Like it was good. It was a very good dining hall. At the pizza table, which was right when you came in, if you went around counterclockwise, which is the way everybody went for whatever reason, you'd go in and you'd take a right. And the pizza table was right there. There'd be a round table. And there's this group of theater kids that always sat there. And they were the kind of people that they'll always smile and be positive. But whenever you talk to someone who, got introduced to them or something, it's like they don't learn about anything unique about you. You might say like, "Oh, I have this thing and I feel a little self-conscious talking to you about it, but I actually have, bipolar disorder," is a simple example that a friend of mine was going through. And they're not the kind of people to understand. They don't know about that. They're not going to learn about that. They're not going to internalize what you say about that. They're just going to say, "Oh, that's fine." And it's like, no, that's not good enough. Like you need to own the thing, almost as if you had it, but we can't do that. I don't want you to suffer through the thing I or whoever experienced, but you need to deeply engage with it. You need to come to kind of own that thing. A good way of suggesting doing this is being able to explain the problem in your own terms. Why is it an issue in specific terms? That people are treated unequally because of race, for example. Why? Like mentally, why do people do that? Like, I think you need to be able to explain that or try to explain it. I don't think I can do that for everyone, but I think it's important to be attempting to do that. Again, I know as a white male, is anybody really interested in what I think is the good way to do this? But I don't know. Personally, I just feel like it's not great to try to simply abide other people. I actually think that's much more like ignoring them. A way I've heard this said before is that people don't want people to be a term people often use is colorblind, like to not see people as being different races. Personally, I think that sometimes confuses people unnecessarily, and they think, so you want to be treated differently? And it's like, well, but circumstances need to be acknowledged. Like if people have had a different life experience, you should try to understand that rather than just acting like we should all have the same life experience. I don't know, right? It's complicated. And again, I'm probably the last person anyone cares about their opinion about this, but that was what I had to say, which I think is relevant at the end. Wow, that's what I had to say. A cool open-ended parlay. Yeah, by the way, like these are totally fine. They're not like the current hotness or whatever. Like for whatever reason, people don't ask a lot of these more open-ended ones, but it's fine too. Like it's either here or there. It's what I'm selling. You do you. Definitely not the obnoxious teacher at all, by the way. Thanks for the question.